Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Open Forum. My name is Eduardo Harari. Just want to remind everybody that this show is being brought to you by Single TV's channels 240, 250, and 251, the H.E.R network. Remember to go to the respective apps of iOS and Android and download the app so you can watch all the programming that Single has to offer you as well as Spanglish World Networks. Remember that to leave us a rating and a comment as well, because we always like to hear from our audiences to see how we can improve the programming or to bring you whatever you want. You can leave us that in the comments. As well, remember that Single TV can be acquired as well through Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Today is a very special day. We are welcoming a new member to our wonderful family here at Spanglish World Networks in the person of Miss Laura Ollinger. Uh, New show that is going to be starting this coming Monday at 4 p.m. Uh, keep keep watching our social media with the updates on her show and the guest is going to be. The show is called The Positively Healthy Mom. Welcome, Laura. Welcome to the Spanglish World family.
Oh, thanks so much, Eduardo. It's great to be here. I'm so excited.
So, Laura, I always like to start very simply because our audience always likes to know about the people that they are meeting here on the network. Okay.
Party.
And that's what happens on live TV.
Yeah, there we go. All natural. It's organic.
So, Laura, give us a little bit of a background. Where do you come from? What are you doing? And why Spanglish and bringing this new show to there?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I spent some time on the East Coast in Boston, Massachusetts, but I have been in Austin, Texas for the past 15 years. So this is what I call home, and I'm now officially a Texan by my standards. And I just decided, you know, I was ready to make a career shift a while ago, and I decided to focus on teenagers and their parents, specifically their moms. I was realizing how much teenagers were struggling with social media and the pandemic. So I took my education. I have a master's in health and wellness education. I also have a functional medicine health coaching certification. I have a neuroencoding certification and lots of just other things. But the biggest qualification for myself, honestly, is just that I am the mom of 4 kids. So I have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And so all this knowledge I kind of just combined together. I took my education and I decided I just really wanted to help start coaching teenagers. And what I realized is that it's not just the teenagers that need help, but it's also the moms as well, because moms are just under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, just like their teenagers are. And so I love just helping kind of both sides of the family. And really, it's very honestly, very personal for me, because I remember when I was a teenager, just even how difficult it was back then. And that was before social media. It was just the social pressure and feeling insecure, not feeling great about myself or feeling great self-worth. And so that's why I'm so passionate about helping build up girls. And then I realized, a few years into what I was doing, that boys need this help as well. And having 2 teenage boys, I was seeing, the struggles that they were facing. And so anyway, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So let's talk a little bit more, because it's interesting that the theme of your show is helping moms, helping teenagers, helping people understand each other in a better sense of the word. And you are a mom. I am a dad of 2 teenagers. Well, pre-teenagers, 13 and 12, boy and a girl. And a lot of parents, we face the idea that we are living in a different era now, where there is so much information out there that sometimes the kids don't come anymore to the parents for advice. and they think that the social media and mediums that are available are more efficient. How do you, how has uh, in your own way this developed?
Yes. Well, that's what I've seen as well. There's been three kind of big shifts over the past decade. And one of the things that I do talk about is a shift in authority. So, there's a shift in isolation. Kids are way more isolated than they used to be. There's a shift in access, like what you just talked about, as far as information, like how they're getting information. We used to, when we didn't know something, we would go ask one of our parents or go look it up in the encyclopedia or the dictionary. And now, they just have access to be able to Google anything. So, for one thing, that's been part of the breakdown in the relationship that we knew growing up from parent to teenager, in that teenagers don't need as much, help or guidance as they used to. But it's also that shift of authority, like you just talked about. So, kids are learning a lot of what I would call negative behaviors based or risky behaviors based off of TikTok and other social media outlets. And they're mimicking these behaviors, some of these big dares and these big stunts that can sometimes, a lot of times they're fun and they're silly, but sometimes they can actually be dangerous and life threatening. And other just like kind of negative behaviors as far as disrespecting teachers at school. They're seeing stunts happen where kids are stealing stuff from the school property, or giving the middle finger to teachers. And that didn't happen. If we did that when we grew up, we would be in the principal, we would be getting expelled, all sorts of things. And nowadays that's kind of almost just like normal behavior. It's not liked by the authorities, but it is normal. They're kind of accustomed to it. And it's all this like kind of shift in our morals and ethics. It's like moving goalposts over time. So it used to be, there was a certain behavior expected back, in our era. And even prior to that, there was always expected behavior. And now this expected behavior has kind of deteriorated into a lot more negative behaviors than what we had seen growing up.
So one of the things that I have been, I've been fighting this with my kids' teachers, because the
Mhm.
teachers, I remember in our era that, homework and assignments, and you didn't have time really to expand your horizons during the week. Everything
Mhm.
was done during the weekend.
Yeah.
Now it seems like education has decreased, and the amount of interaction with the teachers and the school is not as heavy. How do you view that phenomenon? Because for we are kids that go into university now, don't they feel it's a party instead of an education.
Yes. Yes. Well, there were so many points you made in there. It's almost like I wanted to separate them out into separate things. But one thing I have experienced just being an observer in my community is a little bit of the opposite in some ways, which is the parents are so involved in the education. They're emailing the teachers, they're emailing the principals. And I'm talking about high school. I'm not talking about younger elementary kids. I'm talking about high school where a grade didn't work out, and they're really like stepping in on their behalf. And it's almost kind of like paralyzing the teenagers to learn the skills about how to advocate for themselves or how to communicate. And I know I have heard a lot of great stories where teenagers did try to do that and it didn't work and they didn't get the grade or whatever that they wanted. So then their parents then do step in. So that's been kind of like an interesting mix. But I see what you're saying about just taking education less seriously in general. And I think a lot of that, in what you're saying, like this party environment in college, I think a lot of that is because just so much has shifted as far as our traditional, framework again for society, where you can now become a YouTube star and an influencer and an internet millionaire, and you don't even have to go to college for that. You don't even have to graduate from high school for that. You can become famous when you're 12, right? And so almost it's like the kids are like, why do I need to learn science if I can just become a gamer? And then I can have people watching me and I can get paid money for that. Like I've actually had my own kids ask me that question, but I've heard it from lots of other, families as well, where they're not understanding, the way we viewed our kind of like progression of, education equals success. Now success can be found in so many other ways.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of, how can I say, we viewed that when we were going to have kids, that it was an extension of what we did, and they were going to get to a higher level. In, but I'm finding that it's very difficult to maintain the attention on the really the normal things.
Mhm.
Going out just to relax is not part of of the kids' behavior now.
Yeah.
You know, I remember going with my parents to onto the woods and just to take a stroll,
Mhm.
because that was what we were accustomed to. Go to
Mhm.
a lake and swim with your, in that type of vacations, but outings. Now the kids don't want to do that. They want to stay in their rooms. They want to stay glued to TV. And I don't see I see the pattern getting worse and worse every time.
I do too. And, in a way, we can view it through the lens of it's not really their fault, right? Like they were born into this time. And, as parents, we are responsible for what technology they do have access to. But it's a very slippery slope. The minute they get their first iPad, a lot of kids these days get one from when they're age 1 or 2 or 3, and over time, their brains are literally becoming, there's actually an argument of whether or not it's a true addiction, but their brains are hijacked by that dopamine release that they get when they're getting that immediate gratification. And anytime they play a video game and there's a ding or a bing or a sound effect, it's literally programming their minds to feel more drawn to that. And so it's like their brains they have a harder time disconnecting and seeing any value in going out and taking a relaxing stroll in the woods, because there's no dings and lights and things going off for their brains, right? It's almost like they do need that digital media detox in order to really see the value. That being said, I think kids still, engage in sports a lot. Where I am, at sports are highly competitive, so at least they're getting that. So, you can't really play a football game with your phone, glued to your face. So there is some, but I think it could be a lot better. And that's part of why I'm here. Like, that is what I'm really excited about sharing kind of with the world, is how to get your kid off of social media or off of gaming or technology, how to get them to do some healthier behaviors, healthier habits, and kind of reconnect the family in, not the old ways of the 50s, or I grew up in the 80s, but the new way. Like, how can we make a family in a healthy way in this time of our period of life?
So let's look at uh, behaviorals, how kids behave, and what parents can do to help. Where do you think what parents need to understand about the current situations and the current ways of operandum of teenagers in these days?
Yeah. Um, That's a big, big question. I think there's multiple answers to that, but the first thing that comes to mind is the need for boundaries with their teenager. And what happens is a lot of times people come to me for help, and it's almost like it's too late. It's like they've already been doing these things for so long. It's really hard to get a 16 or a 17-year-old to suddenly start following rules or guidelines or structure about, time on technology. It's a lot easier to start it from the beginning when they're in fourth grade, fifth grade. Okay, these are the boundaries, these are the rules. But I think that parents have the hardest time, and I can say myself included, right? Like, maintaining that boundary, because what happens is kids start begging and they start whining and they start pleading and they say, well, everybody at school has this and everybody has that, and I'm so left out. Why can't I not have this? And so parents are tired, they're stressed, they're exhausted, and inevitably they kind of start to cave, and they're like, okay, fine, just have it, just take it, here's a phone, but without still keeping any type of structure or guidelines. And so I think that's like a job that we are now having to learn, that we didn't, I mean, we had structure and guidelines about other things. We know to make sure our kids are safe if they're out with friends, if they're in a car, if there's alcohol, right? Like we kind of know that because of that's where we grew up from that point of view. But we don't know the parenting from this point of view, from the technology point of view, because we weren't raised that way. So it's kind of like a new learning curve for parents to like learn how to really they have to decide what it is that they want for their family. You have to have a vision. And then second of all, be able to set those goals and then communicate those effectively to the family, and then figure out, what are the consequences if, people are whining and begging and pleading and pushing back and, sneaking things. It's like, let's just start it out in a really, it's almost like takes an organized fashion, an organized person to kind of like be on top of it and see it through all the steps, instead of like a lot of times parents, they skip those first 3 steps and they just go in and they say, that's it, you've been on your phone too much. And they just grab the phone, but they didn't lay out the vision. They didn't set the goals. They didn't communicate properly. Right. And so then they're all frustrated and stressed, but it's, and then the teenager gets stressed, and then that, creates a lot of conflict, because then it becomes a weapon, like this weapon of, this back and forth, like a power struggle of, well, I want my phone back. Well, da, da, da. And it's like, it didn't ever have to get to that point, right? We could have prevented that whole thing.
When and you have kids that are close in close proximity in ages, the
Mm-hmm.
same as my kids. My kids are 12 and 13,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that my daughter fights a lot for, believe it or not, attention. I have a son that my son is in the spectrum, so
Mm-hmm.
he's getting a lot of the attention because we want to help him progress. But with technology, we find that I have my daughter now TikToking me, or doing something to gain that attention. Uh, how how do parents get into the new technologies
Mm.
and understand what the messaging is behind that their kids might be sending them?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. Um, I think again, there's probably multiple answers to that, but one is, parents should always be doing their own research and figuring out kind of like what the latest apps are and what the latest technologies are. But the best source for that information, besides just doing their own research, is asking their teenager, "Hey, show me this app. What is TikTok? Like, what's it all about? Like, what do you do on here? Oh my gosh, this kind of looks fun. Can you explain it to me? And like, what's the point?" And try to like get into their world and like get them to explain it. And I think like kids love to teach adults things because they are so used to being at school. They're always being taught by either parents or teachers or whoever else is in their life, coaches. But for them to be able to flip the roles and be able to teach us something is actually really fun for them. It's a great way to connect with your teenager and to kind of find out like what all the fuss is about. And like you're saying, to like for her to have a connection to you and get some attention from you if you're usually, focused elsewhere with your son or whatever's happening in your house. I think just kind of climbing into the world and seeing the world through their lens and how they see it is great.
So give us a little bit background. How would you deal with a client, let's say, in dealing with different situations?
Specifically related to the technology part or just anything?
Pro- Mostly communication behavioral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so it depends how I work in different ways. Sometimes I work just the teenager as my client. Sometimes just the mom is my client. And then I also have a hybrid approach where I do mom and teenager or parent and teenager together. But I really love to lay out the sides so that everybody can see the other person's point of view in a very neutral fashion. I always say, I am not taking sides. I'm not taking your mom's side. I'm not taking your teenager side, right? It's like kind of like, let's take a big step back, take a bird's eye view, what's happening here. And I think it's because growing up, I was the middle child. I'm, always negotiating everybody's peace and, being the peacemaker. And so it's kind of just a skill that I was really born with, but it's something that I love to do. And have a teenager have this aha moment where they're like, oh, That's what my mom's trying to do. Like, my mom normally grabs my phone and then I get mad at her, but what she's really doing is she's loving me, she's protecting me, she's trying to have boundaries to keep me safe and keep me healthy. And then they have this, oh, so that's what that means, right? And from the mom side, they complain, oh, my teenager's just on phones all the time, or whatever it is that they're doing, whatever that behavior is that the parent doesn't like. And we have to find out, well, what needs are being met? Maybe your child is lonely. Maybe they're isolated. Maybe that social media is their lifeline to the outside world. And then the mom gets to say, oh, okay, right? I love to like have these light bulbs go on where they're having to look at it through a different lens that they hadn't looked at it before.
You mentioned when you first started about your experience, your education. There is two sides: the psychology and what we call the new sciences, like neuroencoding.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have different ways of interpreting neuroencoding. What does it really do, and how does it help to possibly, let's say, I don't want to say the word reprogramming because it sounds like you're treating your child, or the adult that you're trying to help, like a robot. But how does that work in a sense?
Yeah, no, I understand. So, again, multiple steps to this, but one is just providing an outside perspective or self awareness that people don't necessarily naturally have. Like, we go through our days and we are kind of like robots because we always do the same thing. We wake up, we drink our coffee, we take our kids to school, we start working, right? And we just go through, and it's like Groundhog Day over and over and over again. And when they find themselves struggling and they reach out to help, for help to me or any other coach, and what I can help them provide is, say they're kind of like, they always talk about like everybody has like a baseline of mood. So it could be, I live life in a very kind of stressed out way. I live life in a very depressed kind of a way, or I live life in a very, whatever their natural like mood is. And what we can do is elevate their mood, and that is what then starts to open their minds to new possibilities, new solutions, right? It's like when we're stressed, I always say we're kind of closed down. It's almost like we have these horse blinders on and we can't see the full picture. We're not great problem solvers when we are stressed. When we go through a coaching process and we go through neuroencoding, we're kind of reprogramming our minds to have like a higher level mood where we're able to see possibilities, we're able to see solutions. And it's kind of like having more optimism. They always say when you have more optimism, you have more options. And so the whole idea of coaching and of neuroencoding is to learn how to do that for yourself. So you hire a coach like me and you get trained on how to think this new way, how to be more optimistic, how to have a better mood, how to have better options. And over time, the idea is that we default to, instead of this lower mood, we want to default to a higher mood so that we can be better problem solvers. So once I teach someone how to do that, and then they're able to start doing it for themselves every single day for the rest of their life, right? Like normally someone works with me for 3 months or 6 months. I always say, these are skills you're going to use for the rest of your life. This is not just a quick fix. This is like a new way of thinking. And it's a new way to kind of change your thoughts so that you are not thinking negatively, you're thinking more positively.
That's interesting because people don't always think about how to be positive. They always think about how to resolve issues in a positive way, but not being positive internally.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that cool? Like, be positive first, then you can solve the problem instead of trying to solve the problem with a positive attitude, right? It's like, let's just fix everything else first, and then everything kind of gets easier after that. It's much easier.
So I'll give you a I'll give you an example, and you try a question, a problem, and you try to let's try to see how we can elaborate on that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Everybody's going through an economic turmoil right now. In
Mm.
the Whether you are very high in the scale of oh, having a lot of money, or whether you are still struggling because times are tough right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
How how can we turn it around in a positive with a positive attitude to make the issues become more sensible?
Well, I always say it starts with, it starts with a lot of things, but it starts with identity, like what you believe about yourself and the language that you're using. So people who are, stressed out about the economic times that we're in, they are probably thinking of themselves as a victim. They're probably thinking of themselves as, unsuccessful, or, not one of the lucky ones, or, they see people who are doing better than themselves and they think, oh, well, they have it easy. Oh, they were given money by their grandparents, or whatever it might be, or oh, they had a better college opportunity than I did. And so it's all about, they're making themselves feel small and feel like the victim and feel sad and feel upset and feel like the world is out to get them, whatever that might be. And so what we can do is, have that person like go through a process of switching their thinking. It's like, well, what do you have? What education did you get? um what could this mean besides just this current month or year that we're in? What about in 5 years? What about in 10 years? Are there opportunities that you could, kind of get yourself involved in for that? And who do you need to become? This is the biggest question, Eduardo. Who do you need to become in order to get what you want? So you need to start thinking of yourself as successful, as lucky, as educated, as whatever the words that you need. Everybody needs something different. I'm just kind of filling in like a generic example. You need to decide that this is who you are now. And then everything will start to line up, will start to fall into place. We'll suddenly start to see things differently. Different things will start happening because our eyes are more open to those positive things. And then suddenly we're not living in this victim mentality. Oh, the world's so hard. It's like, what if we just said the world's easy? The world's easy. We can do this, and it's crazy. I know that sounds kind of like hokey pokey or silly, just by changing some language. But if you change it internally, your internal dialogue, it's amazing what will happen. And here's why, Eduardo, because 90% of our thoughts are subconscious, or I think it's 85% are subconscious. 90% of our thoughts are negative and repetitive. So every day we're having these same negative thoughts over and over and over and over again. It's like, well, no wonder we feel bad, because we're having the same negative thoughts over again. So that's where we do a pattern interrupt. We start to shift into some more positive thinking. And even if you can make your thoughts 1% more positive every day, or 2% more positive every day, then over time, your thinking becomes more positive. And if you look at the world in a different way, the world's easy, the world's fun, the world provides me opportunities, the economic times are temporary, this time is challenging, but it'll pass, right? Like, see, just like the difference in like language and even in my energy. I could feel myself kind of feeling low when I'm talking negatively about it, and then I'm like, wait, all I had to do was kind of look at it from a different angle and realize there are ways. And now I can hear, like, some people saying, well, how does that pay the bills? Well, guess what? It doesn't today, but it might next month, or it might next year, right? When we start to like look at opportunities in a different way.
Yeah, and that's very unique because a lot of normally this type of thinking or this type of mentoring, let's put it that way, because more than a coach is being a mentor to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of mentorship normally we always got it at work. They would bring these wonderful speakers, try to
Mm-hmm.
motivate you to sell, sell, sell,
Mm-hmm.
and feel positive about what you are doing. And people never understood why motivation, having a good sense of motivation to get up, to do whatever you have to do to succeed, was important.
Mm-hmm.
So, with teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
what are those motivators that they need to get? Because the hardest thing that I have to do with my daughter is trying to get her up for school
Oh,
every single morning. So, how do you motivate someone to get up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I trust me because I'm not a morning person. I was the same way when I was her age. I had a hard time getting up. I get it. It's so funny because as adults, we want to use logic and reasoning so badly with teenagers. We're like desperate to like lay out the facts and say, okay, if you don't go to school, you're not going to make good grades, and then you're not going to get into a good college, and then you're not going to have a successful career, and then blah, 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 right? That does not work with them. That doesn't resonate with them. With teenagers, and really anybody, but teenagers especially, you have to go through their emotional pathways to make any kind of an impact. And it's just like kind of a really simple thing. Because I honestly, Eduardo, I struggled helping some of my clients at times, who are having some organizational challenges, or challenges with grades and challenges with school and all this stuff. And I couldn't figure out really like the right way, because I thought I was doing a great job and we still weren't getting the results. And I'm like, what am I missing? I'm missing something. I had to change it. And so what I realized, it can be so simple. Everybody wants to feel good. Nobody wants to feel bad. And when they realize there's a connection between when I get myself up and I go to school, I feel good. The reason why I feel good is because that's what I'm supposed to be doing, right? When I sleep in and I can't get out of bed and I have to press snooze a million times, or my dad has to keep waking me up, I feel bad, right? You know why? Because teenagers want to be independent. They desperately want to like be able to have the life skills to, if she was, had an apartment today, she would love to be able to, oh, I can cook, I can go to work, I can do all these things and be like a little miniature adult. And, she's not going to have that. But what she can be is a miniature adult in her own life that she's currently in. So she's going to feel good if she can attach the behavior with the feeling of when I get up, I feel good. Or when I do my schoolwork, I feel good. Even if it's math, a lot of my clients hate math or whatever subject they don't like. They're like, I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to do it. I want to do it. And I say, well, how will you feel when you finished your homework? They say, I'll feel good. I'll feel great. I'll feel proud, or I'll feel accomplished. Okay, great. So it's like, if you can get her, we never want to give them the answers. That's like the fun part of being a coach, is you ask lots of questions and you get them to give the answer. So if you could get your daughter to say, out loud verbally, I feel good when I get myself up, or I'm going to reward myself if I get myself up 5 days in a row without my dad's help. I'm going to, give myself a manicure over the weekend, or what, whatever that is, that whatever the thing is that she would think would be like a fun reward. But to like build those habits, it's not always easy, but if we always attach a positive emotion to whatever behavior we're trying to encourage, then that's the key, usually 99% of the time.
One of the things that with, and especially again going back to technology, going back to social media, because that's one of the most difficult things to deal with in today's age for a parent, because yes, you can restrict how much they use it, but they all will always find a way to get around it.
Oh, yeah.
uh, I have a hard time because they are now, the way to communicate with their friends is through these wonderful applications that the world has created. And you tell them, okay, get off your phone, don't talk so much. But then they say, I don't want to be isolated from the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way we communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to comprehend that now that phone became an extension of their body.
Yeah.
There is not. And I keep telling my daughter, I said, why don't you tell your friends, go to the mall, have
Yeah.
a drink? Oh, no, we don't want that. They spend hours and hours playing games, actually watching somebody else play games, but commenting on the phone about it.
Oh, I know. It's insanity. I can't think of a bigger waste of time, to be quite
I'm trying to figure out why the people watch somebody else play the game.
Yeah. I honestly, I haven't figured that out either. I know my son likes to do that sometimes, and I've asked him lots of questions about that, and I have not solved that mystery. But, I see what you're saying, which is so true, where kids have even replaced social opportunities with technology when they should be hanging out face to face, talking face to face, making eye contact, developing those social skills, going to the mall, like you're saying, like we used to do, walk around, and instead they're home and they're maybe connected through their phone in a social way. But, why is that good? Well, I would say it's not. A lot of people are very black and white on social media, and I am not. I'm very gray. I think there are some really good qualities about it, especially during the pandemic. That's how kids were connected. If they didn't have that, they had nothing, right? And so it was a lifeline for some people. So I'm never going to say it's all bad. Kids shouldn't have it. I'm not one of those people. The problem lies when it's replacing other behaviors which are healthier, such as hanging out in person. And so, I think that's where parents do have to step in. We are I say we are their prefrontal cortex, meaning we have to play the role of decision makers at times when teenagers are not capable of making, we all know the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed till they're 26 years old. And that's the part of the brain that's responsible for good decision making. And so that is the point of the boundaries that I talked about earlier. That's the point of setting limits, is because we as adults are able to see things that they can't see or make rational decisions that they're not able to make for themselves. So that might be the time when we say, hey, you can be on it for this much time, but the rest of the time I want you doing exercise, hanging out with your friends, doing something else that might be good for you, and, help them see that. And there is one other way, Eduardo, of getting a teenager to kind of buy into what we're encouraging, which is teenagers have a real, hard time, like they don't like to be manipulated. And when you explain to them that social media is manipulating their mind, then that really bothers them. That makes them angry. That makes them upset. They're like, we don't want to, because of all the algorithms and what they're being shown, they're being used for their data. They're being used for, they are the product. And when you explain it to them like that, they're like, oh, well, we don't want some company or make money off of us or to sell our data. Or, they kind of get that little enraged, which is a positive use of, the feeling of anger. And when you explain it to them like that, they're like, oh, well, now this is stupid, right? They kind of suddenly lose interest when they realize like how it really works.
So we have touched on a little bit on what you are going to be discussing on in your show, but what can we expect? Because I know that you work with a lot of very important, resourceful people.
Mm-hmm.
You probably will bring onto your show, but what else can we expect from this show?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because there's, this whole other side that I want to bring to, my community that I call the positively healthy mom, because I'm not just calling myself the positively healthy mom. I want everybody to be able to call themselves the positively healthy mom. And so part of what that means is, they always say, put your oxygen mask on first. And, if you're on a plane, you have to take care of yourself first. So part of it is to encourage moms emotionally, to help them learn maybe some new skills or new things that have to do with their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health, their social health, their spiritual health. It's all about building up a mom to be the best version of herself, so that therefore then she can be the best mom she can be. She's happy with who she is. She's healthy. She's happy. She's resilient. She's resourceful. She's then strong enough to see herself as, how we talked about before, the identity of kind of the victim or, the victor of their life. And when they feel like they are in charge of their own life, that's setting such a great example for their teenager, especially a mom setting a great example for a teenage girl of, I'm not the victim of my life. I get to decide how I want to be, who I want to be. So as far as, what to expect with my show, I'm going to bring on lots of cool people. I have quite a lineup coming of people who, in fact, my very first guest is an ordained minister, but she's extremely passionate about body image and her own health struggles that she's had, but how, she has 3 teenagers herself, 2 teenage girls and a son. And so, I want to bring her experience so that people can learn from her. I've got other people coming. I've got a therapist who primarily works with moms. I've got a couple coaches lined up. I've got a yoga teacher coming. I've got a person who specializes in health for moms as far as like working out and making smoothies and being really fit. But I'm also, we're going to just tackle it from all angles. Like I said, the physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects of who a mom is as a person in order to give her the best energy, the best life so that she can be there for her kids, and also teach her some new skills. Like I said, some communication skills, how to set these boundaries that we all are struggling to set, just all sorts of things to just build up moms.
That's amazing. Are we going to hear from moms themselves that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, almost all my guests are moms. I may bring in a few other people just to mix it up a little bit, but part of it is I'm going to bring them in for their expertise as far as their career knowledge. But part of the talking, that we're going to do is about their own experience. Like, what is it like in their house? What can they share as far as being a mom? And yeah. So yes, my guests will be moms.
Amazing, amazing. No, that's incredible, because I think that and moms happen to be a commodity that is rarely rarely looked at.
Mhm.
They serve very well, but no one rewards them for what they do truly. And I know that I put my mom through hell and back, probably, uh, as a teenager, and probably still till today. She doesn't understand what I do and how I do it. So, I think that this is an area that nobody has touched, and it's great that you are going to bring forth, that talking with moms about what they have done and how they have felt over the years, because it's amazing. Um, I hope that you bring your kids too, and so they can talk about how great a mom you are.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yes, I will definitely bring them on. And you know what? There was one other thing, just as you were speaking, that I wanted to mention, which is, I talked about bringing on moms as, having their professional expertise and then also what it's like in their home. My other guests are also going to be, moms who don't work outside of the home. Like a mom's job, like you said, it's enormous. It's underappreciated. And so I would love to just have moms on who don't have, like I said, a career outside the home, but a career, being a mom is a career and people don't recognize it. They don't value it. We feel, those types of moms feel so underappreciated, undervalued in our society. And I really want to lift them up. I want to support them. I want to tell them that they are amazing, tell them how hard they're working, because I know it. I see it. I've done it myself, and I appreciate these moms, and I want to really empower them.
Amazing. Now, you give us a little bit, a little foresight of your first guest. You were talking about what can we expect from that first guest, and what what topics you might touch in that conversation.
Yeah. So Lisa's amazing. I'm so excited for everybody to meet her and see her. She's phenomenal. Like I mentioned, she's an ordained minister. So she has kind of the gift of speaking. She could probably do the whole show by herself without me asking her a lot of questions, but I am going to ask her some questions along the way to kind of guide the conversation and allow her to share her own experiences, like I said, of her health journey and why body image has become a platform that she stands on. And she does a lot of her own social media stuff. And I always find it so inspirational. And so I feel like people need to hear this message. They need to hear the reframing of what it's like to kind of love your body, appreciate your body. As moms, we are so hard on ourselves, and, being, women, we are feeling judged and criticized. And the thing is, the worst critics are ourselves. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we, tear ourselves apart. We're very negative thinkers. And so I want to just flip that. I want people to start to love their bodies, appreciate their bodies. If you've had babies, you get it. Like, your body has had to evolve. We've gone through all sorts of changes and hormones and, things like that. And it's like, let's see what the positive things is. Just like, we're not the victim, we're the victor. Like, let's see how strong and powerful our bodies are and learn to appreciate that. And so I'm real excited about the conversation. I'm actually have no idea what's going to come out of it. I just know I have a great guest. I'm going to ask her some great questions, and I can't wait to hear how that all unfolds.
So with that, Laura, it's amazing. Thank you for bringing this show onto the network. I think that is going to be a great tool for people to actually watch every time that you are on. As we said, Mondays at 4 p.m. and Eastern Standard, and it's going to be interesting to see how people react, especially in social media, because one of the great things that we have is that we transmit globally, and we transmit into all social media networks, and to have those conversations come live onto our screen and see what the questions that they are going to throw at you guys uh, is going to be interesting. That's one of the things that we want to remind everybody, that you can contact the show that Laura is going to do live as it's happening, and you can ask her questions, ask her guest questions on how they would do different things. So we look forward to this coming Monday at 4 p.m. Laura, thank you very much for being a guest, and I want to remind everybody that this show can be heard on the radio network of Spanglish World. Remember to go to our website, spanglishworld.ca, for all the news and programming. Remember as well that it is important for you to leave us a comment, leave us a rating on what you are watching or what you want to watch, because if we don't have it, we will go out and bring it to you. People have asked about parenting, so we went out and got Laura to do a show with us, because it's very important to you. So remember, Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, but especially leave it, because for us, you are our zone, you are our world. Until next time, here on Open Forum, this has been Eduardo Harari with Laura Ollinger. And remember to go to watch her show on Monday at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.